You can spend billions, trillions even of dollars on the homeless crisis. And it will not make a difference if the people who are in charge of trying to make homelessness better fail at their jobs. This segment is brought to you by Eastside Weight Loss Clinic. Some patients like me can lose 20 to 30 pounds in a month or two. Schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. There are some things that government ought to be able to do, some core functions they ought to be able to do well, if they do nothing else well. Like, for instance, in an emergency situation like we had last week with the bomb cyclone, like, we should be able to make sure that people aren't without power for 6 to 7 days without the state stepping in and like helping out in some form or fashion, except Governor Inslee said, well, local agencies have to come to us if they want help. If they want me to declare a state of emergency, as if he cared, first of all, I digress, but as if he cared what local jurisdictions wanted during the pandemic. So many of them were screaming for him to leave them alone and let them handle the pandemic. And he shoved his state of emergency down their throats for 975 days. And now that there's a storm, he's like, well, I'm not gonna step on the toes of the counties and the cities. No. If they want help from the state and they want me to declare a state of emergency and send in the National Guard, well, they're gonna have to come groveling to me for it. It's just ridiculous. But I want to talk about the King County Regional Homelessness Authority and its bungling of this storm. Like, you and I, and Nicole, let's just say, okay, I am an agency that's tasked with helping the homeless, and I have endless revenue to do so, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I have billions of dollars over time, but let's say tens of millions of dollars. Let's be generous. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. There's a big storm coming in. It's going to be dangerous. Like, it's called a bomb cyclone, and it's going to be high winds, obviously dangerous for people living in tents, right? Like, what's your first priority going to be?
Would be to get people out of tents.
Right?
Tents, not safe in a storm. It's not what you typically would take camping and consider yourself safe in.
You're hired. You are the new head of the King County Regional Homeless Authority. But like, right, 70-mile-an-hour winds. Would any of us go out camping in 70-mile-an-hour winds? Unless we're like climbing Mount Everest and we know the winds are going to be high. Like, we've planned for that, right?
That's a special kind of tent, though.
That's a special kind of tent. We're going to buckle that bad boy down. And we're not expecting comfort.
These tents, you've just made kites.
Yeah, you just made kites. And so, yeah, that's the first thing, right? Okay, we can't stop the storm. We have homeless people. We already know that we're not going to be able to help them all out of homelessness by then. So let's just set up some sort of emergency shelter situation. Let's reach out to our public-private partnerships. We've got endless empty buildings, like all the old brick and mortar shops. I'm sure you can find some defunct Office Depots or Bed Bath and Beyonds that went into the beyond and no longer function. Thousands of square feet. Let's get the tents inside. Step number one, right?
In fact, we're going to talk about Linwood, and there is a Bed Bath & Beyond that closed. Big, huge building.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Maybe that's where this woman who died in a tent, a homeless woman, in Linwood, because of the high winds, a large tree fell on a homeless encampment. This is from South County Fire. Firefighters responded after a large tree fell on a homeless encampment off Alderwood Mall Parkway in Linwood shortly after 7 p.m. tonight. Tragically, a woman in her 50s died. No other injuries were reported. Okay. To be expected, yeah. There were trees falling down everywhere. There was even a woman who was killed in a nice-sized house showering, and a tree fell on her very nice house. I'm assuming it was a well-built house, and killed her, because that's what trees do. So, of course, if a tree falls on a tent, the person in it's going to die. But we have hundreds of millions of dollars that we give this agency, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority, to try to help these individuals. And I think that this is actually the Linwood woman. Technically, that's Snohomish County, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. But still, same principle applies. So King County Regional Homelessness Authority, this is the extent of the help they gave homeless people during the bomb cyclone. God, it's so similar to Inslee's response. Like, oh, our protocols don't allow us to do anything because it's wind. We don't have protocols for wind.
Even something called a cyclone.
We don't have protocols for wind. We have protocols for cold weather. We have protocols for snow, but this is wind. What are we supposed to do? It says the King County's severe weather protocol, the King County Regional Homelessness Authority's severe weather protocols are not currently active, as the incoming storm meets neither our temperature, precipitation, nor duration thresholds. We have not activated our protocols. Soak that in. Oh, well, it's not snow, it's wind. So we're not going to activate these protocols. Here's how we are responding. We have sent safety information to our county-wide service providers and governmental partners. In lieu of having our severe weather shelter lists active, that's one of our protocols, we are directing people and partners to our regional services database for access to year-round services. We have started internal conversations about how to respond when wind events that don't meet our other activation thresholds occur. If you're able to seek shelter inside a safe building during the day, you can rely on public spaces such as malls or shopping centers in Seattle Public Libraries or King County Libraries or day centers. At night, if you're able, seek overnight shelter. You can use the King County Regional Homelessness Authority's Regional Services Database. Yeah, where's the homeless person going to do that? I mean, I know some of them have phones. Here's the tips. We're not gonna help you, but we'll give you some tips. If you're staying outside, tie down tents and canopies with additional lines and strong pegs or anchors. I hate to laugh, but this is so stupid. If you can move your camp downwind of a large object like a building without causing an obstruction, do so. Avoid areas with power lines, large overhanging tree branches, or dead trees. Secure loose objects like chairs or garbage cans that could blow away. If you're staying in your car or RV, follow the same guidance for those staying outside when applicable. Shutter your windows securely and brace outside doors. I need you all to wrap your minds around this. That is the advice they gave. An agency that gets hundreds of millions of dollars from taxpayers to help the homeless. And their advice was to put more substantial stakes in your tent. Or maybe don't set your tent up right underneath a tree. Sound advice, but I could give that advice. Common sense, even for a homeless person, probably gives them that advice. Like, hey, 70-mile-an-hour winds, I'm going to take all that crap I have outside my tent and I'm going to bring it inside my tent. Like, we don't need a multi-million-dollar government agency to tell them that. And their honest-to-God excuse for not activating their emergency shelter protocol is because their emergency shelter protocol only kicks in for different kinds of weather events. We have no protocol for high wind. What do? Oh, let's start internal conversations about how to respond when wind events that don't meet our other activation thresholds occur. So the next wind event, they'll do better because they'll have had their internal conversations about how to respond when wind events that don't meet our other activation thresholds occur, because their activation thresholds only if it's too cold or too hot outside, only if it's snowing quite a bit. Then we're going to put that plan into action that taxpayers have spent hundreds of millions of dollars helping us craft. But if it's high wind, hands are tied. Throw an extra stake on your tent. Absolutely, not just unbelievable, disgusting, criminal, that's corruption. I know it's not corruption in the traditional sense, but when your incompetence as a government agency literally kills people, literally puts people in harm's way, that's corruption to me. Every single person at that agency who was part of that decision not to put its emergency protocols in place should lose their jobs. But that's not what we do in the public sector. When you fail, we let you keep your high-paying job, your six-figure job. You have people at the King County Regional Homelessness Authority making six figures who are sitting in a warm office or home somewhere deciding that 70-mile-an-hour winds, a once-in-a-generation bomb cyclone, didn't meet the threshold to activate emergency shelter for the people living on the streets that they're tasked with helping, because it wasn't the kind of weather event that they were prepared for. Criminal corruption should lose their jobs. Insane stuff.